Welcome to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and on this episode, we'll be talking to Bishop R.C. Blakes. Now, in his words, he says he's a pastor, he's an author, and he's a man. He is a speaker of love and relationships, and yes, he is an author of several books. He serves as the senior pastor of the New Home Family Worship Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Houston, Texas. He will discuss with us on this episode how to know if you're with that right person or you're about to marry the right person. All right, Bishop Blakes, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. I appreciate it.
Yes,
I appreciate the invitation.
Yes, I'm so very excited. You know, I've been watching a lot of your shows and, you know, just kind of researching you. And so I'm so excited to be able to talk with you on the Lovers Lounge. I know that you have a plethora of videos and you have some books. So first of all, I want to ask you about your books, maybe the latest ones. What are they? What are they called? And why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, my latest books, my most popular book is Queenology, and it's a book that's directed specifically to the empowerment of women. It speaks to what I call the broken consciousness of the woman, which I believe is something that is intentionally done by society to prevent the woman from being able to appreciate her full potential or being able to see herself for all that the Creator made her to be. Mm-hmm. So Queenology somewhat reconnects the woman with that, with her true identity in God. And then I have my very latest book, which is entitled Kingology, which is the male counterpart to the Queenology message. And it deals with a return to classical manhood. It's me and my generation pouring into the next generation the principles of manhood as I learned them, and as I believe they are communicated in the Word of God. And so those are my latest works. And then of course there's another book entitled Soul Ties, Breaking the Ties That Bind. Yeah. And that deals with, escaping toxic relationships, recognizing them, and being able to move forward.
All right. Yes. And I know that you have videos to talk about Queenology. I think you may have introed a video on Kingology. And then I know that you have a video on Soul Ties. So just a lot. You're on YouTube a lot and you come on live. So is there a schedule? Is there a certain time that you come on, and, how does that work?
No, there's not really a certain time that I come on. I used to do that. I used to have a particular time, but my schedule got a lot too hectic to maintain a real scheduled time. So I come on randomly. I try to come on at least twice a week, but I come on randomly. There are some weeks that I might come on every day for 3 days, and then the other weeks that I'll come on one day out of the week. And I just encourage people to set their alerts so that when I am on, they'll
get a notification.
Alerted that I am.
Yeah. So they can subscribe to your channel, and then definitely they'll probably get some notifications when you pop on, and then they can join you.
Absolutely.
What I've noticed is you have a lot of women that are on that listen to you. Do you speak mostly to women? Is that intentional? Is that on purpose? Or do you have a man time when you're talking to men? Just how does that work? Because I tend to see a lot of females that are following you and listening to your information.
Well, it's not, I would put it this way. It's purposeful, but it was not intentional.
Okay.
It's a message that, I guess it's an organic message that somewhat evolved, and as it evolved, I realized that I had tapped into the purpose of God. But originally, when I first started speaking to the empowerment of women, I was standing in my pastoral role. And I had observed social media. This was many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I observed social media, and one night I was on Facebook, and I read this posting by this beautiful young lady, and she was encouraging, women to use their brains, use their intellect, use their education, and I was really, empowered by it. But then she ended it with basically verbiage that suggested women, if all else fails, that women should use their sexuality as a success strategy.
Wow.
And so I developed this message entitled the Father-Daughter Talk, which was
Yeah.
or is everything a father should have taught his daughters, everything a young woman should have learned before she left home to go into the world.
Yeah.
And from there, it's kind of like the message just carried me. It was never mastermind the kind of thing. It was just something organic. And as I continued to speak, I realized that we had generations of women who needed to hear certain things that I was talking about
Absolutely. Yeah.
from the voice of a man. And so the message has really carried me. And here it is, years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, I love it. I really, really do, especially the father daughter, because as I sit here and I'm thinking about it as you were talking, you have a lot of females that possibly for one reason or another, and I know you covered this with the father daughter talk, that maybe the father was not in the home. Maybe he was physically not in the home at all, or maybe he was in the home physically, but he was a provider, and so he worked a lot, and so he was in and out, and that daughter just didn't get that emotional support from the father. And so as I'm just thinking about it, I know there's a need, and I really thank you so much for doing that. It's great. It's great to see.
Well, it comes naturally. Being the father of three young women,
Yeah.
it comes naturally. And I thank God for it because it has proven to bless the lives of thousands of women all across the United States and even in other parts of the world.
Yeah. I would imagine too, if there are some men that can take a look at that father daughter talk, some men may not even know how to have certain conversations with their daughter. So I don't know. I think they probably could learn a lot from listening to you and hearing that presentation. Yeah. Okay.
Well, honestly, men many times buy my book
They
or
do.
buy that particular book for that purpose,
Yes.
to kind of peruse it. And many times men say, they write me and they say, well, I kind of gleaned from your book and I'm using it as a guide as it pertains to what I should be sharing with my daughter.
Very good.
And so I've got nothing but rave reviews from guys.
Awesome.
Thank God for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And before we get to talking about our content here, I do want to touch on the fact that you do have some developmental programs like webinars and things that you're offering. So like the Queenology and Kingology. Are these programs that people can do through like a webinar program where they join and they get constant content and understanding from you on this topic or the topics?
Well, these programs are pre-recorded.
Yeah.
They're not taken from live video. These are programs that I go in and I pre-record. However many sessions go to the program, and it's just kind of like me and them.
Yeah.
And what happens is they go to my website and they can purchase whatever program it is they're interested in, and they have access to it 24/7, and they can go at their own pace, come back, and it's lifetime access. And so we've done Queenology, we've done Transcending the Father Wound, we've done the program on Breaking Soul Ties, and we've done one for women in ministry, Wisdom for Women in Ministry. So I've done 4 so far.
All right.
I'm working on the Kingology to go along with. I usually do them, as they accompany my books in most cases.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on the Kingology program now for the brothers.
Okay, great. And I can't forget to mention, now you travel a lot and your lovely wife, Lisa Blakes, travels along with you and she sort of works hand in hand with you in presenting some of this information. Is that correct?
She does. and she's not really the person that necessarily loves the spotlight.
Right, right.
But when we put some fire under, she does get out there, and she's an excellent communicator. She really is.
She
She
is.
just she would rather stay in the background and take care of the business side of things, but she's an excellent communicator, and sometimes she does get out there with me. Yes.
I've seen that. Yes. Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, now we're going to get on to our topic for this episode. And that is, how to know that you found the right one. I mean, you've got videos on that. You talk about maybe red flags that you don't have the right one. So my thing is, there's a lot of people that are dating right now. Maybe they're trying to decide whether or not this is the partner for them. They're maybe thinking about marriage. And so I'm hoping that our discussion today can help shed some light for some people as to whether or not they're wasting their time or they're with the right man or woman. How about
Amen. I'm
that?
in.
All right, then. And I know it's interesting. I hear you talk a lot about how important it is that women and men not make relational choices out of their flesh. Can you expound on that? I think we ought to just touch on that right off the bat, how important that is.
Well, I'm a pastor,
Right.
and I'm an empowerment speaker, which means that I travel the nation, empowering women and men as well. And 90%, 95% of any question I may get is in relationship to relationships between men and women. And in most cases, there's a problem in the relationship. And when we have the discussions that lead us back to the root that has produced the rotten fruit,
Mm-hmm.
it usually goes back to decisions about a relationship or a person that one was attracted to sexually or physically. And when we really search that thing out, most people come back, if they're honest, they come back with the conclusion that they attach themselves to this person
Yeah.
based on temporal things that are simply passing away: looks, money, sex, and very few have done the work to really look deeper into the quality of the person's soul, or the frequency of the person's spirit,
Yeah.
relative to who they are according to the creator. And so most of the people that are listening to us now are engaged in relationships that are failing and hurting. And if they really stop for a minute and take a real deep introspective look, they too will come back with the conclusion that this is an attachment they allowed to happen based on things like sex, looks, and money.
Yeah.
And very few have really gone deeper.
Looking at the
So that's what I
physique.
mean when I say not, based on the flesh, because the flesh is changing every 5, 10 years. It's changing. It
Okay.
is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Looking at somebody's exterior, their arms, their chest, the way this woman is shaped and whatnot, that can all change. And so you're saying you really do have to look a lot deeper than that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, spiritually yoked. I want you to touch on that. The importance of being spiritually yoked with a person. Can you share on that?
Well, the Bible talks about not being unequally yoked together with unbelievers. The Bible specifically says,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a larger principle. It's a life principle that you just don't. A yoke, number one, is a tool or an item that is designed to join two beasts together for the purpose of doing labor.
Okay.
So you would yoke two donkeys, you might yoke two horses, you might yoke two cows, you might yoke two bulls, but you don't yoke a donkey and a stallion,
Ah,
because they have different temperaments,
right.
they have different natures, they have different strides, different strengths.
Hmm.
And if you yoke the two together, it could end in the death of one or both, more than likely the injury of at least one, if not both, because they were not designed to be connected.
I see.
And so it is in relationships. If we start our relationships from the spirit, the internals of the individual, and we move to the externals, the spirit, the soul or the mind, and then the body, we then give ourselves an opportunity to create relationships that the Creator will endorse.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start relationships based on the flesh, those visual, temporal, tangible things,
Uh-huh.
and there's nothing in common spiritually, there's no foundation. And this is where we enter into relationships that hurt and injure and tend to wreck the future.
Yes.
It's because the eternal aspects of me as an individual were not designed to be connected to or attached to someone that is not on the same frequency. All of us have a spiritual frequency. And if you are a person that loves God, for instance, and you have a deep faith, it does not matter that you see someone in a club that you may be physically or sexually attracted to. If that person does not have a belief in God, where's the foundation for any real long-term relationship? So that's in a nutshell what I mean by that.
Okay.
Is that you have to make certain, you have to search out the spirit of the person before you allow yourself to get carried away with all of the promptings of the flesh.
Yeah.
Because the flesh can convince you that wrong is right and right is wrong. So it behooves everyone to take the time to really know the spirit of an individual before you connect yourself or attach yourself.
Got it. Very good. Very good. Now, something else that you say is very important is that you'll know when you've met the right person when you find someone that has respect for you. And this goes for men and women. So can you give some examples of what you mean by, knowing that this person has respect for you? How would that show up?
Well, I think it shows up in a number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
When a person has respect for you, there will be, they will have a listening ear to your opinions. Anyone that disregards your opinions does not have a fundamental respect for you. They will listen to you. They will respect your boundaries. So many women, for instance, enter into relationships and try to maintain relationships where their boundaries are constantly offended. You say to this guy, here's the line, don't go beyond this. He constantly goes beyond it. And you continue to set a new standard, and he continues to break it. Respect shows up in the tone of voice that one uses, the language that a person uses with you. So many men, just to flip the coin, I see are disrespected by the women in their lives, by the way they're blatantly and publicly humiliated by certain women that they consider to be dear to them. But yet there's no respect. There's the disregard for the other person's interest or feelings. For me, I'm just kind of old school. If I'm supposed to pick you up at 5:00 and I know I'm not going to get there until 5:15, 5 minutes to 5, I'm going to call you and tell you I'm running a little late and tell you why and what time you should expect me.
Very good.
But now we're in a generation where somebody can say, I'll get you at 5, they'll show up at 7. And they will feel like they're entitled to your participation in that evening. That's disrespectful.
Very.
And if there's not a fundamental respect for one another, again, there's no foundation.
Yeah. And as I'm thinking, everything that I know that I've studied and learned, especially about men, is that respect is pretty high on the list for a man. I mean, that's probably close to number one, if not number one, is that man
Absolutely.
wants you to respect him. And that's something that's just very important to them. Do you agree?
I do agree. I think a person um, demands what they provide for themselves. If I respect myself,
Okay.
I will demand that others do the same. And I also think that people learn how to treat us based on the way they see us treat ourselves.
Very good.
And respect is a major component of um, of a relationship for a man. Any real man, any king of a man,
That's right.
needs respect from his woman. And any king of a man that needs that kind of respect, he first gives it to his woman. So he demonstrates what he needs,
Very.
and then he expects what he's given.
All right.
And so, yeah,
All right.
that's that's major.
Yes, I think so. Now, something else is that the right woman or man that you're with will make you feel like you are number one. You talk about, that person should make you feel like a priority. Why don't you talk about that?
Yes, I believe when you find the right one, and this is an old discussion that I had. I think
Yeah.
this might be 2 years ago.
Yeah, it could be about two,
But
3 years.
when you find the right one, what you discover is that person will have his or her life in order to the extent that you'll never find yourself in competition with anyone else for the main spot in this person's life. Me for instance,
Hmm.
I'm a mama's boy,
Yes.
and my mother is still living, thank God.
Hmm.
But there's no mistaking, in my family dynamic, who's number one in my life, and that is my wife, Lisa.
Yes.
And these are lessons that my mother taught me as a young boy. When you get a wife, she has to be number one in your life. And I see so many relationships, especially with women, where the present woman feels like, is made to feel like, in some cases, in a lot of cases,
Hmm.
that she's in competition with the two other baby mamas, and she's in competition with the mama, she's in competition with the sisters, she's in competition with the homeboys. Well, he's not the right one. He's not the right one.
Okay.
When you find the right man, he is going to honor you, and to honor means to put you in a special place of esteem. He's going to honor you to a point that you'll always know, and you'll always be certain that there is nothing and no one that compares or you compete with,
It's a bigger priority.
because the right man is going to provide that kind of security. And when the man finds the right woman,
Okay.
she's going to make him absolute number one in her life, which women, more than not, tend to do that. But it's brothers many times that fail to honor the woman properly. And so the woman is always left in this emotional turmoil trying to figure out, where am I at? Am I number two? Am I number three? Am I four? And this leads to what? Broken self-esteem at the hands of a man that just does not know how to order his relational life. And so that's it in a nutshell.
All right. Okay. Now, something else that's important, according to you, is that you should be with someone that is able to make you laugh. Like at some point, this person should be able to make you laugh. Like it shouldn't be business all the time, you say. What are your thoughts?
Well, and that comes out of personal experience. Maybe it's preference. I don't know, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, more people tend to agree with me on this point than not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unthinkable to consider spending your entire life with someone that does not make you laugh, has no interest in making you laugh, and does not laugh with you. Um, that's one of the things that I think is most attractive Uh,
Okay, so you mentioned that the right person will be generous in every way. So can you tell me, Bishop, why is this important?
I think that generosity is fundamental to healthy relationships because healthy relationships are built on serving. Healthy relationships are built on giving. I think this is why so many relationships fail. No one told them in the beginning that to make this relationship work, that this man would have to get up every day of his life and seek to give this woman everything that she needs, and that this woman would have to wake up every day of her life and seek to give this man everything that he needs. And when both get up and both seek to fulfill all of the needs of the other, no one is left unfulfilled.
I see.
And so I believe in the dating process, especially, that one should pay attention to the generosity of a person because it is that person's generosity in dating that may be the greatest indicator of their nature and their capacity or willingness for selfless living, which is mandatory and fundamental to great relationships. So if a woman has a man that's too cheap to pay for dinner, why would she imagine that he would actually lay down his life for?
Mm.
I believe generosity is an indicator of what's going on in the spirit of a person, and so that's why I believe that. And then generosity is relative. You know, if a woman is dating Michael Jordan, his generosity is going to be different than mine because it's relative.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman may date a man that's minimum wage.
Right.
You don't compare his actions to mine or my actions to Michael Jordan's because it's always relative.
Right.
But when a woman looks at the totality of a man, she should see him being a generous man.
Okay. All right. And how important do you think that it is that if you're with the right person, you're able to be yourself? I know that you talk about, you reference being naked and unafraid. That shows up in Genesis, I believe, in one of the scriptures, being naked and unafraid. Not necessarily naked physically, but that at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like you say, a person should be able to be themselves. So what can you talk about that?
Well, a person has to be able to be him or herself 24/7. Number one, to be psychologically healthy, I have to be able to be authentic. To be emotionally healthy, I have to live in a context that accepts me for who I am. And to be relationally functional, I have to know that when I look at you, that you see me for who I am, you love me for who I am, and I'm not just some science project that you're working on trying to change me into your image or into something you desire me to be, like a Frankenstein.
Right.
So being yourself is the most authentic thing you can do, and it is dysfunctional and traumatic to try to maintain a relationship that does not accept who you are fundamentally as an individual.
Right.
Because when you enter into a relationship, though it becomes a partnership and hopefully it becomes a marriage, if all things line up, you never divorce your individuality. I'm still R.C. Blake Jr. as an individual in the context with Lisa Blake as an individual. Mm-hmm. We both bring our individuality into the context of the relationship, and we become something together that we could have never been apart. But the only way we can really merge is that she has to accept me for who I am. And I likewise have to accept her for who she is. And there's so many people who are in relationships where people are constantly trying to change them. And they don't realize that this person is really doing sometimes irreparable emotional and psychological damage to them. Because a person that's always trying to change you is constantly saying to you, you're not enough, you're not good enough.
You're not okay.
And, so that's where I'm coming from when I make statements like that.
Right. And patience. Patience is also something that you say is very important when you're talking about being with the right person, that the right person or the right mate is going to be patient with you as you are evolving and as you are, growing together. Is that right?
Absolutely. Now, I think, and I'm always careful when we deal with this thing called patience in a relationship,
Okay.
because sometimes it can function as a two-edged sword. It can mean well on one end, but it can do a lot of damage on the other, because so many people are patient with people who don't deserve that patience.
All right.
A man that, for instance, a man that would deserve a woman being patient with him is a man that brings to the table all of the necessary attributes to make for a husband and a leader. If a man lacks the fundamental characteristics of a husband and or leader, there's nothing to be patient for. I think in the teaching, the illustration I use, because so many women are patient with guys that are just there's no hope for it.
Right.
But then you have ladies who have great guys, maybe they're a little rough around the edges, and they become impatient with them. It's amazing how a woman can have a fundamentally good man and be impatient with him,
Right.
and then another woman can have a fundamentally flawed man and waste her whole life trying to wait on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the illustration I think I used is a man in particularly is kind of like it's like a toy that you would get for your kid, and you see the image on the outside of the box, but when you open the box, it's filled with pieces, and it says assembly required. Well, a good man is like that. Sometimes he requires a little assembly, but the main thing is that all of the pieces must be in the box. If the pieces are not there, it's a futile process. If a woman has a man that may require some assembly, in other words, you may have to teach him how to dress, or you may have to teach him how to be a gentleman in certain aspects, but he has the love there for you. He has the patience and the kindness and the gentleness.
Right.
Then a woman should be patient with that kind of man. But if a man is just fundamentally flawed and lacking anything necessary to really be a husband or a leader, there's nothing to be patient with or for.
Cut your losses and move on, huh?
Absolutely. It's much better. It's much better to cut this now and move on with the rest of your life than to prolong or protract this horror story.
Yes. Now, on the flip side, for the man who has a woman, how patient should he be with his lady?
Oh, I think a man. I think one of, in my opinion, I think one of the major characteristics a woman should look for in a man that would make for a good husband or spouse is patience. He has to be gentle. He has to be kind. He has to be patient. He has to be, and I think it's even more so required of us to be patient with women, because many times we are the ones that have traumatized the woman, and sometimes it takes the woman a while to even get to a place where she can trust us, because two or three people that look like us before us have so traumatized the woman that now she needs to see an example of manhood that is patient and kind and gentle and does not rush her and does not, seek to manipulate or control. So I think any man, and if a man really loves a woman,
right?
If a man really loves a woman, he will wait, he will wait, he will wait, and he will be patient for that woman if he really loves her. If a man is rushing a woman and he's not patient, she may need to rethink the truth behind his words of adoration and love. Because the love of a man, when a man really loves a woman, he will be patient and he will wait as long as he has to for that woman.
Yes. Okay. All right. Something else that's important is closing the deal, as you say, or solidifying the relationship, the way that you'll know that you have the right person is that this person is ready to close the deal, and you know that they're in the right type of relationship. So why don't you share a little bit more on this?
Um, so many times you see people who are in these um, decade or decades long courtships. You know, we're going together. Okay, well, where are you going? Because you've been going together for 10 years now. You've been going together for 15 years, and now it's two babies later, and y'all still going somewhere, making babies along the way. When are we going to get some definition to this? Well, real men are visionaries. A man is a visionary. A man, not a grown boy, but a man is a visionary. And visionaries have long-term plans. So when a grown man enters into the world and is interested in a woman, he's not thinking sex. He's not thinking about, instant gratification or, gratification of things that don't play into his future. He's thinking long term. And whenever a grown man recognizes value, he makes a decision. So men think long term, and when they recognize value, they make decisions because leaders are decisive. Anytime a man does not show the capacity to be decisive, he is either undeveloped or he's not interested in a relationship that would be long term or would go to the next level. As for instance, in marriage, he may be interested in maintaining the sex, but if he does not make a decision for you, it is then that you have to, as a woman, make a decision for yourself, because there has to be some time restraints and limits on how long you allow yourself to just hang out in the realm of the undefined, because
Right.
real men make decisions. Real men are decisive.
Yeah.
And real men are looking for wives. They're not looking for girlfriends. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for wives.
Yeah. But on the flip side, you do talk about how sometimes females can be the ones dragging their heels on this, that they may be the person who is not ready to seal the deal. What do you think in terms of that aspect?
Well, I've seen that. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've had men to reach out to me and, just about crying
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted to get married, and the female, she didn't want to get married. She didn't want it. And um, at least one occasion that I remember, the man lost interest, because when a man wants a wife, he wants a wife. He doesn't want a girlfriend.
Right.
He doesn't want just somebody to date. He doesn't just want a dinner, partner. When a man wants a wife, he wants a wife, and he's looking for a wife,
Yeah.
because at that point he recognizes who he is, where he's going, and now he needs the one to help him get there.
Right.
And so on one occasion, I remember that the woman just kind of, played it off, and then finally the guy lost interest. And then, she was calling me, wanted me to call him and try to talk to him. But when a man changes his mind,
Yeah.
he's changed his mind. And that guy moved on and married another lady, and they're doing extremely well today.
Yeah.
An amazing business. They have two beautiful young boys. And the lady that turned him off, um, she still looks a bit distraught behind it.
Oh my
So I think
gosh.
a woman has to really be careful not to be influenced by the opinions of your friends or, pop culture. And when the right one shows up and you know that you have husband material here, I think you have to really go into prayer, and you have to really, really take into consideration what's on the table in front of you, because it's not promised that you're going to have that opportunity again, because great men that would make great husbands are not, they're not on every corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as we move and go around another corner here, I want to talk about the importance of being or having someone who is not intellectually inferior. You really raised some great points about, you know, uh, making sure that this person is on the same level intellectually, and that, when you're talking about dreams and aspirations and vision and goals and where you're going in the
Hmm.
relationship, or what's important to you or how you're trying to grow, that this person is just not looking at you like the deer in the headlights. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So let's talk about that.
Well, so many people, and that goes back to the principle of not being unequally yoked together.
Yeah.
Because in the church, we just always we whittle that down to we water that down to both of y'all got to love God and both of y'all got to be in the same church. Well, there's more to that, more to it than that. You can be in the same church and love God and still be unequally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I believe that if I'm searching for the one, the right one, I need a person who I can have an in-depth conversation with. It kind of goes back to the part we talked about relative to a person that can make you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
That's a quality that goes through life. You get married at 25, y'all die at 100. The being able to make me laugh thing is something that never leaves. Well, likewise with the intellect.
Yeah.
The 36, 24, 36 may change. You may go from a Coke bottle to 2 liter, but the intellect will always remain. And I think it was Maya Angelou who said that brains are forever beautiful.
Ah.
And when you have a person that can understand your deepest thoughts and you can throw ideas on the table and they can come back, with enhancements to your ideas. That's what I mean. I don't mean to, it doesn't speak of education. A lot of times when people hear that statement, they think I'm saying, well, you have to have equal education. Quite frankly, some of the most intellectually inferior people I know have PhDs.
Right.
Intellectual compatibility is only discovered in deep, deep conversation and when one is pouring out his or her heart to a person, and that person not only do you serve it, but they can send it back to you.
Right.
And you find yourself engaged in one of these all-night conversations because the intellectual compatibility is so beautiful and so attractive. And every person should find a person or should wait on a person that brings that kind of energy and brings that kind of compatibility intellectually into your life.
Right.
My father was a brilliant man. He was not, he had to, he was born in Mississippi, and so he had to drop out of school early to go to work. So he came to the city of New Orleans as a teenager, and he had to get his GED, and he met my mother, who was a college student at the time. My mother went on to get her master's. But you listen to my mother today talk about my father, and the thing that comes out of those conversations the more is in how she so adored his brain, his mind. She talks about the things that he taught her. Now, mind you, she's the one that has the master's degree from Xavier University.
Right.
My father's the one that had to go and get a GED.
Yeah.
But his brilliance still amazes my mother. He's been dead for 7 years now.
Yeah.
But his brilliance still amazes my mother. And that's what a person should look for. I don't mean to just go on and on.
No, that's good. That's good. I totally get it. Just that wisdom. It sounds like he was such a wise man that, she just was probably hanging on every word because of just his brain and his brilliance and his wisdom was very, very attractive to her. That's great. Okay. There's another something before we go that I want to make sure we touch on, and that is having similar philosophies around money. Money, of course, can be one of the things that breaks up a marriage or a relationship, oftentimes one of the number one things. So why is it so important that you have similar philosophies around money?
Well, it's important because the Bible puts it this way. I don't remember book, chapter, or verse. The Bible says, money answereth all things.
Hmm.
And in this life, in this world, and specifically in this country, the United States of America, um, behind God, in terms of security, is money. It's God, and then you got to make certain that you have your financial matters in order. Your credit has to be in a certain place. You have to be prepared for retirement. You got to be prepared for crises like this. You got to have some say 3, 6, I say a whole year's worth of living expenses put aside. And if you have those personal goals as an individual, that you want to have good credit, and you want to have money saved, and you want to be financially responsible, and then you develop this relationship with this person based on things that are trivial and temporal, and you go down the aisle and you marry this person and you never have the money discussion, you never have the money conversation, and then you get home and suddenly you all are married, and you're making bills, and he's making bills, and he's not paying them, and he has access to she has access to your social security number, and you look around, you're in financial turmoil,
Mm-hmm.
because you attached yourself to someone who did not share your fundamental financial philosophy. That's a conversation that every person must have with another person that they're intending, or if there is even the potential of them going the distance.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about money? And where do you stand relative to things financial?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a reason that money is usually at the center of most divorces.
Right.
It's because when those philosophies uh, conflict with one another, it creates the kind of havoc that is not usually repairable.
Right. Right. And we're in some, when I'm thinking about the times that we're in right now, and the financial state of many at this time, uh, couples can have there can be a strain on the relationship or the marriage, and so it's important that when we become in a situation like this, that we're on the same page and that we sort of cleave together and we work together. But if you have somebody who is on the other page and they're buying red bottoms and all this and not understanding that maybe
Oh,
we need to kind of save and not be
come on.
spending, you know what I'm talking about,
I do
Bishop,
know. I do know.
then this is where you're gonna be having a problem. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you touched on that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So before we go, Bishop, can you share with the listeners, just before we go, how they can, again, hear you on YouTube a lot? If there's some social media, how they can reach you maybe on Facebook or see whatever, Instagram, all of that.
Well, they can go to YouTube, and I'd love for them to go there and subscribe to my channel, R.C. Blake. And of course, on Facebook, you can find me. My personal page is R.C. Blake. My what is it? Fan page, I think they call it, is R.C. Blakes Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on Instagram, R.C. Blakes. You can go to my website, rcblakes.com. And what else? What else? I'm everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
everywhere. I think I do. In fact, I do. I have a podcast on iTunes. Just search for R.C. Blakes, and I try to be wherever people are. Just look for R.C. Blakes, and you'll find me somewhere out there.
Great, great. I didn't know that. I'm going to be looking you up. Of course, this show is on iTunes also, and Spotify and Stitcher and iHeartRadio and all that. So I'll definitely be looking for your podcast. That's good to know. All right. Well, thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bishop, for coming on the show. And maybe down the line we can have you come back because, like I said, you have so much to talk about. And the Kingology, once you get that really going, I mean, I would love to really spend some time talking to the fellas about Kingology.
I would love to do that. That's
All
my
right.
mission these days.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, and now this is what I need you to do before we close. I want to remind you not to forget to subscribe, to comment, to rate, and or to like the show. This helps me to know, the different topics that you guys are interested in, and well, who knows? I mean, it may actually keep me around for a little longer. Thank you so much for listening to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and until next time, peace. And of course, please don't forget, love